Hello coaches and welcome to this edition of Give and Go. My name's David Newberry, I'm the e-learning coordinator, and today's session is looking at an attacking concept and an activity called attacking 2 versus 1 to 3 versus 2 to goal. And as you can see on this diagram, the layout is reasonably simple. We have approximately a 50-yard long rectangle and approximately 25 to 30 yards wide. And of course, that can be adjusted based on the age group that you're coaching. We have two teams, one team that is set up on one side of the field and another team, the blue team, on the other side of the field. And the way the activity starts is one of the players on the attacking team passes the ball to their teammate starting at halfway. And as that happens, the player that passed the ball enters onto the field, and those two players now try to combine to beat one single defender that enters the field from the other side of the field. And if the defender wins the ball, of course, the defender has the opportunity to try and score in the other end. The goalkeepers are in place for both teams, and each team has a large supply of balls by the side of the goal. And the objective is for both teams to score. We play 3 sequences of 5 minutes with a short break in between. So a few things to consider here. Firstly, the distance between the goals and the halfway line has to be realistic because if we're going to work functionally with roles in mind, this is our midfield player. It doesn't matter whether they're central, left or right. And here we have our striker. So the distance has to be age appropriate. In this case, probably about 20 to 25 yards away. So that's one thing to consider. Secondly, to make it realistic to the game, the player at the halfway must come in to meet the ball so that is like it is in a game with a striker cutting back towards the ball. If the player just stands on the cone in a game, the defender will just step in front and win the ball. And what we should do is as the player starts dribbling into the middle of the field, we should then get the player on the ball to engage the defender before they pass or try to beat the defender. You may want to consider adding an assistant or at very least an offside line. An offside line will help you to keep the striker on the goal side of the ball and try to time their run so they don't get into an offside position. And you can set up either flat markers or use a line at either end of the field. As we progress this sequence, the two players that were attacking, the two whites, the player that actually received the ball back, the central midfield player, has now dribbled to one side and then shot across the goalkeeper and scored. One thing you'll notice is that the other striker has now moved into a position where they can finish a rebound if one occurred. Once the game is over and the two whites have finished, the player that started from the end line now goes to the halfway line, and the player that was at the halfway line now goes to the end line to give them different positional looks. And then as the ball enters the goal or the ball goes off the end line, the blue player standing at the other end goes in the opposite direction and starts the sequence again. So a few of the things we should think about in the second sequence. Firstly, let's always think about large supply of balls, and also think about how you're going to keep the flow of the activity going if it's going to last for 5 minutes. One way to do it is to have a third team that collects the balls, or having parents to help you. The striker should always go in to finish the rebounds, and because this is a transitional activity, so the attack for the blue team happens immediately once the whites have finished attacking. This is a transitional activity, so that the defender must be attentive, so must be the attacking players, to take advantage of disorganization on the part of the other team. In the last sequence, we now have a 3 versus 2 situation. And to create this, a couple of things have happened. One is that we have now got players from both teams on both sides of the field. So we have split the cones apart with approximately 10 yards between them, and that gives us a little bit of buffer room and an opportunity for blues to start the attack. The other thing we should be thinking of with our attacking team is that when they do enter the field, can we now unbalance the defense by working on our movement? So instead of running in straight lines, maybe the players that are coming in will make overlapping, underlapping runs, so that we can confuse the defenders. In this case, we've only got 2 defenders against 3 attackers. And then as we build up the session, we can build up numbers, 3v2, 4v3, and then eventually end up in a small-sided game. So to increase the challenge level in this activity, we can change the starting positions of players. They don't have to be coming in from the side, they can come in from the end line. We could artificially create a striker position by having a player for the blue team come in a much higher position. So there's lots of different ways that we can create realism of the game. And of course, as we just discussed, we can add more players to the field. To decrease the challenge, you can look at restarting the ball from the coach instead of from the end line. So instead of this player immediately passing the ball in once the attack of the whites is over, the coach can now pass the ball in to the keeper. And that will slow the attack and give the defense more time to organize. And we also can prevent the defenders from pressing too high up the field by creating a halfway line that stretches across the width of the field. And in this case, the white team would not be able to go any closer to the blue team than the halfway line. So I hope you've enjoyed this activity. If you're looking at it through Webinar Jam, you can download the activity plan, and we appreciate you joining and look forward to having you on the next Give and Go Live.